Okay, in today's video, I'm going to do a reaction video. This is on something a little bit different. It's Robert Kiyosaki. He's known for the popular book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this one, he's going to be talking about the what he called the cash flow quadrant. And I'm just going to react to this. I never typically react to him before. I typically have mixed feelings about him. I do think when it comes to real estate and leveraging debt and a good way to buy assets, as far as to changing the mindset with Rich Dad Poor Dad, I do think that's good. Some of his opinions I think is a little bit more extreme. In certain topics, I think he talks about that he's not that knowledgeable about. But no further ado, let's jump into it and see what he has to say.
One of the more important lessons my rich dad taught me, he said there was 4 types of people in the world of business or money, whatever he said. And this here are the 4 different types of people, and he called this the cash flow quadrant. So E stands for employee, S stands for self-employed, small business or specialist like a doctor or a lawyer. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and I stands for investor. Now the distinction here is this, is that each of these are 4 different types of people. They have 4 different tax laws for all 4 different types of people, and this is throughout the world. But it was my poor dad who always said to me, son, go to school so you can get a job. So my poor dad wanted me to be an employee like him. And there's nothing wrong with that and all this, except the tax laws are the worst for employees.
Now, I will say he does have a point with there. When you're talking about as far as tax laws and you have a job, typically you're going to be in the pay the most particular taxes. And by the way, he did make a good point about that. Income tax is one of the highest tax that you would end up paying. So he does have a point with that one.
Warren Buffett says, he, as a business owner and investor, he pays a lower percentage rate than the employees. And many
That's true.
employees are having a tough time today. Not only is there high gas prices, but there's going to be higher taxes. My mother wanted me to become a doctor or a specialist or a small business person, and I said to my mom, S stands for smart. She says, you got a good point there, because I didn't do well in school, so I wasn't going to make it there. It was my rich dad who advised me to become an entrepreneur or a big business owner like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, all those guys that created Facebook and Yahoo and all this, or Google. And he wanted me to become an investor. So he started me playing the game of Monopoly, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So I learned to be an investor and I learned to be an entrepreneur. So the good news is, if you want to get rich, you can get rich in all 4 quadrants, okay? That's up to you. And so it was my rich dad who said to me, he says, Robert, if you really want to be rich, learn to build businesses. It made more sense to him to work hard to build a business, something you owned and something you could pass on for generation to generation to your kids. Whereas my poor dad...
I think he brings a very good point. When you're talking about ownership, you can kind of have control, resources, and then create opportunities for other people as well. So I would have to agree on that one.
I said work hard, but my rich dad said, why would you work hard for something you'll never own and you can get fired from right away? Again, that was a difference in values. So my rich dad suggested I learn how to be a business owner and learn how to be an investor. And that's one of the big differences. On this side of the quadrant, these people here work for security. They work for money also. On this side over here, their key value that they want is they want freedom. They don't want to have...
Now, this is where I would end up saying, I don't like how you just make that whole general statement as far as, if you're an employee, or I think it was the as self-employed, that you don't have the same goals. That's the particular thing that I don't like. Maybe he's just kind of doing like a blanket general statement, but I think you can have the same mindset and be on the other end of the quadrant. I think it really just comes down to the mindset, the person's individual lives, what kind of responsibilities, what risks they're willing to take. So that's the type of things that about it I didn't necessarily care for, but his overall message, I would agree with that.
to work at a job anymore. They don't want to have to work for the rest of their lives. So the beauty of building a business and learning how to invest is very simply that this is passive income. You work hard for a few years, but possibly for the rest of your life, income keeps flowing to you. Again, the reason somebody thinks a house is an asset is because they lack financial intelligence or low financial IQ. They may have gone to Harvard or in whatever, but if you can't tell an asset from a hole in the ground, I don't know what the heck you can tell the difference of, you know? So it's really quite simply the most important word for those of you in business or finance. No, the most important word is not income, expense, asset, liability. The most important word in the English language for the rich is a word called cash flow. You've got to know where the cash is flowing. So what a rich person is doing is controlling cash flow. So if money comes from an asset into your pocket, it's an asset. So very simply, when I was 9 years old, my rich dad said, assets put money in your pocket whether you work or not. Okay, repeat after me. Assets put money in your pocket whether you work or not. Okay? And very simply, liabilities take money from your pocket. Okay? So what does a liability do? It takes money from your pocket. Okay? So the way you know you have an asset or a liability is very simply this. If let's say you're married with 3 kids and all this stuff, and you stop working, the money coming in.
Now, I'm going to stop right there. I mean, I get what he's saying as far as asset and liability, but you got to remember, in the finance community, that's not the definition. The definition of an asset is a valuable item or a valuable whatever. It's something that's valuable of some type of worth. That's what an asset is. However, from a practical sense, the assets you would have, you would like for it to be able to generate money for you as well. I just wanted to kind of go over that. So the definition as far as in the finance community does not necessarily have to generate money. It's anything of value. Yeah, and a liability would be debt or any obligations you owe to someone else. So I just wanted to kind of go over that. But from a practical sense, the mindset and stuff, he's kind of right. But I just wanted to kind of clear that up.
And is money from an asset, and the money going out is money from a liability. So if you happen to have a little house sitting over here, and it's sucking cash out of your pocket every month, it's a liability, and can do it. A number of years ago.
Okay, so let's go back there. So, what he's particularly saying about the house, the fact that you have to, you have to end up paying the mortgage and stuff like that. But what he doesn't mention is the equity you do build in the house is the assets. I mean, the equity that you do build in the house would categorize under the assets. So of course, the debt you owe on the house would be a liability. But as time goes on, you will owe less debt, and you would still have a house as an asset, meaning a valuable item. Now, I get what he's saying as far as it's not producing any type of money from a cash flow perspective. But to say, oh, a house is a liability, that was what I consider a little bit more controversial, because anything of value would be considered an asset. Now, of course, you would like I said, of course, if you had a house and you rent it out and it generated cash flow, of course, from a financial perspective, that would be more ideal. But just to kind of say that I think a house can be a liability depending on the individual person or kind of what type of house you're buying, or if you have a family or things like that. But let's carry on.
It's a liability, and can do it. A number of years ago, I bought a $7 million commercial building. I paid for it with zero down, and every month after everything is paid for, it puts about $30,000 a month income in my pocket, or $360,000 a year for no money down. So that is the price of having a good education or a bad education. A good education is knowing the good debt versus bad debt and how debtors can win if you know what you're doing. Even in this economic environment of high volatility, because I'm basing all of my investments not on capital gains or appreciation, I base all of my investments on cash flow, how much money comes in. So even though the real estate market has crashed, I hate to say this, but it's been good for me because more people became renters all of a sudden. So my rental rates went up.
Now, that's what I will say about him. The way that you can utilize debt in a way to generate cash flow, as far as in the real estate market, I will have to give him credit for that. But some of the statements that he makes, I don't like when he kind of make those blanket statements where, okay, if you're employee or self-employed, you don't have the desire to build wealth, or you don't have a plan. Everybody likes to go things everybody likes to go with things a different way, and as you know, as far as the house goes and stuff like that. Now, I will end up saying, if you're trying to build wealth very quickly and scale pretty quickly, you probably would have to end up using leverage as far as to buy properties and stuff, and to become make a substantial money in a short period of time. I will say that, but hold on.
Up, my income went up, I'm paying for it with cheap dollars and things like this. So, in the new rules of money, you have to know the difference between good debt and bad debt, and why savers are losers and debtors are winners.
Okay, and I definitely wanted to, I'm probably going to end up concluding this video, but definitely the good debt and bad debt you kind of definitely need to know. So if you're going to pay for stuff in debt, you would want it to be assets or things that can end up generating you money. You don't want to buy things that is not bringing money into your pocket or anything like that. I would completely agree what he said about that. That concludes this video. Let me know about it. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe to the channel.